And this will be recording, so. Should be recording now. Okay. Missing Alan's music he usually plays.
Elevator music?
He usually plays something fun.
Or more dignified?
So we have some people coming in. There's Moni. I'm going to have him move to a panelist so that he can help me with questions. And I see Gail. Hi, Moni. Oh,
there he is. He's back.
Can't see you now.
I know. I was just putting in a not disturb.
And I see Gail. Hi, and welcome, Jeff and Julia and Luis and Rin. Thanks for coming on today and joining us. We've got another 5 minutes, so feel free to move about a little bit until we get launched here. And we have Africa. Welcome, Africa. Good to see you on. Thanks for joining. So we've got about 4 more minutes. Start.
Hey, Marty, there's a background on. That's really like yummy looking.
Alan, you inspire me.
Thank you.
You set a very high benchmark.
Thank you. I do what I can. Yeah.
I think we need to send Moni the restaurant program background.
I can do that. I can do that.
Are you saying I can't use this?
That's exactly what I'm saying, especially while you're eating.
I'll be done before we start. Gotta keep my energy up.
I just heard that I'm a Chicago Cubs fan from the years I spent living there. Just released a bunch of additional pictures as Zoom backgrounds. So basically you can have like one of the pitchers on one side of you or one of the batters on the other. I'm thinking of, I need to pull those out.
Alan, maybe you'll know this. For some reason, I can't get my headphones to work, and I used to always listen. I just find it easier. Is there something I've disengaged that I didn't realize? You think?
Have you tried the button to the left? So on the far left, when next to the picture of your microphone's little up arrow,
Yeah.
you can specify your speakers. And
Oh, thank you. See, I knew it was something.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I see Leopoldo with us. Hey, Leopoldo. How are you? Welcome from España.
Yeah, I like that.
Great, so we have like 2 more minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started. Can you see that I'm recording, Alan? I've got too many screens open.
You are recording, yes.
Thank you.
Is this better?
That's possibly more suitable.
Okay.
And we have Tim who's joined us. Welcome, Tim. We'll be getting started here in another minute.
So I think maybe that's a bit more over here for that look.
Okay, I don't get the significance of that right now, but
Yeah, that's a Cubs picture. I think it's, I really can't tell who it is, to be honest. I've been using this one a lot. The Visit Napa Valley's Wine from Home. Although my favorite one is still this one. I wish I was traveling again.
Okay, let's go ahead and launch. Hi, everybody. My name is Louise Dawson, and I am the manager for the Northern California Small Business Development Center restaurant program. And today we're bringing you the first in a series of 3 webinars called Pivot Your Restaurant. And these were created specifically for restaurants and food businesses in reaction to COVID-19. We're tapping into the Changemakers and seeing what people who are managing to successfully navigate these really trying times, what they're doing and how we can learn from that. And so I'm really excited today to launch From Restaurant to Community Kitchen with a special guest today, Adriana Lopez Vermouth, who has been a friend and a client for the better part of a decade. And I'm always really amazed at her vision and her energy and her creativity in running a restaurant, and how she always manages to take a negative and turn it into a positive. And I think we could all learn a little bit of that right now. We're just gonna spend a few minutes talking about how to interact with this webinar here.
Did you want me to do it, or do you want to do it?
Oh, sure, go ahead, you can do it, Alan.
Okay, hit the button one time. And so let's talk about the various ways you can communicate. If you haven't, I think at this point, pretty much everyone's spent their lives on Zoom for the last month. But if you haven't, and this is a Zoom webinar, which is a little bit different, you'll see 3 buttons on the bar on the bottom. So that first, the one in the middle is raise hand. We'd like you to use that if you need help from me in terms of technical support. So if there's something you want to respond, if there's a question you've got, if you do that, I will reach out to you in chat privately and find out what it is you need. To the right of that button is the Q&A button, and that's how all those little adjustments are off, aren't they, on this one?
Yeah.
That is the Q&A. Press that one again, and you'll see that what comes up is a little question answer box. So what you can do there is you can put in your own question, so that's how we're going to be taking the questions for Adriana, and maybe Louise and Marnie will be kind of answering those maybe in the background. Or if this feels like something that they think would be a good idea for everyone to hear, they'll probably respond to that or wait until the question section comes in and then ask Adriana to respond to it so everyone can share the answer. If on the left-hand side of that button you see the chat we really want to keep back just for responses. So you might possibly, Adriana may ask at some point, who's where in California are you, or have you done this sort of thing before, or I don't know, what's your favorite type of food. But if it's a question we're asking for everyone to respond to, then you see towards the bottom of that, if you click one more time, Louise, you'll see there's a choice between sending something to just the panelists, which is the 4 of us you can see, or all panelists and attendees. So you want to share it with everyone, all panelists and attendees. If it's just for me, then you can select all panelists. And then click about one more time if a way to get to your audio options. So there's some audio connectivity issues you can handle. So if you click that arrow to the right of that. It brings up a bunch of menus. Depending on what you've got on your system, you might have various options. So there's the ability to test your microphone and speaker. So if you click on that, and it'll take you through a process where it will play the ringtone for you, and you'll hear that. And if you then it'll allow you to test a microphone. We probably have microphones turned off right now, but we do have the ability, if we want to later on, turn people's microphones off, and you want to test that. One more time, if you press that, it'll go away, and it'll check whether or not you heard all those things worked. You can get back to that from audio settings, where you can test all your various settings to your heart's content. And finally, and probably the most important one, if you're having a problem, if you click one more time on there, Louise, you'll see that select phone audio, or switch to phone audio. So if you have a problem, if you click that now, when that comes up, that gives you a phone number to call into and a meeting ID, and that will get you through the phone to this Zoom call. And if you put your participant ID in, we'll know it's you as well on the phone. That's all you need to know. So I'm going to hand it back to the people who can really help you now.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Alan, appreciate that. So welcome everyone. So just wanted to talk a little bit about the Northern California SBDC restaurant program. We boast 8 advisors that provide restaurant and hospitality training and one-on-one advising. No cost to you. This is your tax dollars at work. We have advisors with specialties in beverage program, marketing and branding, artisan food, mobile food, service training, and finance and funding. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Adriana today. And I didn't put your bio up there because I always like to tell the story of how you got into the restaurant industry, and Adriana's father, Leopoldo, who is very well known and regarded in the culinary industry and as a teacher throughout Venezuela, has, after Adriana had her first child, said to her, well, you know, you're in the Bay Area, you're in San Francisco, and your family's here in Venezuela. How are you going to keep connected to your culture? And how are you going to teach your children where they're from and what their background is? And Adriana decided to do that through her restaurant. And so that's how I'm going to introduce her, but she'll tell you a little bit more about herself as we move through. So what we're gonna talk about today on the agenda is who Adriana and her business Pika Pika Arepa Kitchen is, and her history, how they changed their business model prior to COVID-19, and then after the shelter in place, the drastic pivot that they took in response to that, namely because of Adriana's passion to keep all of her employees 100% fully employed. Then we'll do a wrap up and a takeaway. And one piece of advice that I got from Adriana in the course of putting this together is she said, you know, we are not determining how people are ordering or getting food from us. They are determining that. And, you know, she says that in terms of people getting access to their food, they're access agnostic, which she's going to explain in a little bit. And the takeaway is to have a diversified number of business lines or business products, but mainly they'll be determined by your menu. So before we begin, we're going to take a few polls. Alan, would you mind launching the first poll for us, please? So how many of the attendees had some sort of catering or delivery in place prior to COVID? Did you have a brick and mortar only, restaurant and delivery, restaurant and catering, or restaurant, delivery, and catering? So please cast your votes.
Started to see some votes coming in.
Okay.
Also, there are people are hitting the second question as well, which is to be expected.
Yep. How many attendees are interested in adding a community kitchen to their business model? So right now, it looks like the majority of people have a brick and mortar only, Adriana.
Okay.
There are some restaurants and catering, but only 11% have restaurant and delivery, and only 22% have restaurant, delivery, and catering. So that's kind of interesting. So we know where people are at. And then how many are interested in adding a community kitchen? 78% said yes, and 22% said no. So that'll give us a sense of the level of interest. Okay, great, thank you. Final results there, and we can go ahead and wrap that up.
So that's the results we see.
Right.
With 33 equals 33 for brick and mortar only and 33 for restaurant and catering. So a late push by the restaurant and catering option.
Great, okay, we can go ahead and get rid of that now. And I am going to move it forward to you, Adriana.
Thank you for the invitation, Louise and Alan. I really appreciate being able to think about what we're doing and think about it in retrospect. So this has been interesting and fun for me. So I hope you take something out of this, and I am available after this via email. If you have any thoughts or questions, I'm happy to help you think through some things. So Pika Pika Arepa Kitchen was launched by my father and I in 2008. As Luis explained, it came out of a desire to stay connected to my heritage. And my father was a restaurateur in Venezuela. He had 3 different kinds of restaurants, but had that experience. So we decided to explore this opportunity. I have a background, I studied cultural anthropology, which for me is defined as understanding human behavior and in their context, in their cultural context, which actually has come in quite handy over my years of entrepreneurship. I then worked in venture capital, where I learned about startups, writing business plans, raising money, and the different aspects that are valuable when you are thinking about launching and funding a business. And I also worked at a few technology startups, which really taught me the value of wearing many different hats at once and to problem solve quickly. So if you want to go to the next slide, Luis, I thought I'd give you a very brief history. Oh, sorry, Pika Pika. So Venezuela in a pocket. It took us many years to figure out how to properly describe a food item that was quite unknown in the Bay Area. We launched our restaurant in 2008. And at the time, people did not know where Venezuela was located, let alone what food we ate. So Venezuela in a pocket. Pika Pika Arepa Kitchen, by its name, has the arepa, which is a grilled corn pocket stuffed with savory fillings, as its main menu item. We have sides like yuca fries and sweet plantains, salads, soups, and cachapas, which is a sweet corn crepe stuffed with these proteins. It was my father and I that started it together, and really anchoring the flavor profile on Venezuelan recipes, but also with our family heritage. So it has a touch of sweet, savory, and spicy. So it's quite, I saw a comment about somebody coming in and loving the food, so I appreciate that. It's a layered flavor profile of sweet, savory, and spicy, which is quite unique, and I think has been important to differentiate us from the very well-known Salvadoran and Mexican cuisine in the Bay Area. Our menu is also 100% gluten-free. You can see in the middle, the main ingredients that we use are corn, yuca root, taro root, and plantains. That has given us an advantage with a niche group, which is the celiac community. And as food trends have developed over the years, whether it's paleo or vegan, obviously celiac, or any kind of allergen issues, we have been able to support those without needing to change our menu. We are soy-free, nut-free, gluten-free, and in many cases, we can make the dishes dairy-free. So all of those are very specific to the Bay Area. That demand for food trends is very specific to us, but I think it's a growing trend worldwide. So we have been also able to leverage those attributes as we have introduced our menu. Next. So I thought it would be important to give you a very brief history of where we've been, just to help you understand where my mind and my framework is when crisis arises. So when we opened in 2008, we opened at the Oxbow Public Market, and a lot of things happened that year that went against growing the business. The first was the city of Napa closed the main access point to the Oxbow Market because they wanted to do flood management for the river, taking advantage of the FEMA funds available from the Katrina crisis. So that was one. Then we hit the national crisis, and nothing like COVID, but it was very fast and furious how we went. Our sales went down dramatically, and in 1 month we would make what we had projected on our first year to be making in a week. So that was very hard. What we did then said, well, we need to bring our food out to people. We can't just wait and have people figure out that we're sitting here. So we went out and did food markets. We did farmers markets, concerts, any kind of street event. We probably did, for the first 2 years between 2008 and 10, about 40 to 45 events every year, which means that we were out on the street Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was really hard. It was really hard because it was physically intense to pick up the restaurant, put it on a truck, go out. We went to San Jose, we went to Sacramento, San Francisco, Marin, Napa, but we learned a lot about our product. We learned that it's a very easy product to transport. It's very malleable. We reduced our menu offering. Of course, we would only offer one kind of arepa, which was the sweet yellow corn, stuffed with very few items. So we learned that we could be creative, that we could move quickly, and that we could market ourselves in a different way. And when you put yourself in front of people in different environments, it's great because you take so much feedback from people. And because it was a new menu item, we needed all of that feedback. So that really helped us, but it exhausted us. It was really hard to do the business and to do the outdoor business. So we ended up just having the one that left us the highest margins and biggest exposure, which is Outside Lands, the music festival, which we have done for 12 years in a row. In the meantime, we opened a bar also at the Oxbow Market. We worked with the landlord on some terms that were beneficial for us, and we used that bar as a way of bringing in more people, and that helped. It was a little bit off-brand because we were an arepa kitchen, but again, we just got creative and we had a really good time with that. And in 2010, which is when I met Louise Dawson, she introduced me to a location in the Mission, 15th and Valencia, which right now it's hopping, but at the time it wasn't as hot, and it was 2010, so we had really favorable terms in our rental. So we jumped on that and decided, well, it's not the hottest spot in San Francisco, but that is okay because we had a lot of respect for the San Francisco food industry. So we started a little slow, undercover, and then just, started growing as the city's food scene on Valencia Street started growing. In 2012, we opened in the Castro district another restaurant. And at that time, I was really stretched, as you can imagine. We had 4 different locations, each with a different footprint. And that was too challenging. So we decided to downsize and keep one location, which is the one that we have today in the Mission, and we stopped losing money, which was a great thing. Next.
Sorry.
So so what's interesting as I looked back is that since we started, we have had to think about how you need to change your business model to adapt to what comes at you, external factors that may influence your business. We developed the business thinking that it would be a regular brick and mortar, like any restaurant, following all of the guidelines on how to run and operate a brick and mortar restaurant. But as I just explained, that really went out the window the minute that we opened. So once we had the multiple locations, we were ready to think about how we could continue to bring people to our locations and to market our food product, which was still quite unknown. My vision was, I will be successful the day that people are in front of their computers, craving food and thinking, should I have sushi, pizza, burritos, or an arepa? And I just had that as a focus. I was like, I really want people to crave an arepa for lunch the way they crave other food items. So a way of doing that was partnering with third-party vendors. Very new. Cater to Me. We were probably maybe the second or third customer using a vendor to enter offices to offer caterings. And then Caviar, we are Caviar's number 4th customer, offering what we know today as the online food delivery. And as they grew and learned, we grew and learned, what do you offer? What's the price offering? Who delivers? How much do you charge for that? Etc. So I wanted to point out that as of 2015, when we closed all of the other locations and we only had one location, I really hunkered down and said, okay, I have one door that people can come through. Only 28 people can sit in that restaurant. It's very small, but I really need to make more money because operating in San Francisco is very expensive. So as I started going out and looking, people started coming and offering us platforms, and we became platform agnostic. We worked at some point probably with 15 different vendors, both doing takeout and delivery and catering. And what I mean about platform agnostic is I didn't know if people were logging in through Grubhub or Seamless, Order Ahead. These are all brands that are kind of the first ones. Then Caviar, then Uber, then DoorDash, so on and so forth. All I knew is that people were going to log into their computers and order food. And I just wanted to make sure that Pika Pika was always in whichever platform they chose to use. And that's what we did. So what I wanted to point out is that if you look at our numbers between 2015 and 2019, our business model completely flipped. 2015, 13.5% of sales were takeout, delivery, and catering. In 2019, that is the end of last year, 56% of sales are coming through vendors, not people walking through the door. So I spent the better part of last year baffled, thinking, what are we going to do? Because we're making more food, we're delivering more food, we're technically bringing in more money in gross receipts, but our profits are down. Of course they're down because we're paying 20 to 25% for every order that walks out the door. But there's a certain limit at which you cannot charge more than X for a certain food item, or you price yourself out of the market. So I still really struggle with that idea. So I will talk a little bit about that in a minute. So next slide. Just wanted to give you an idea that we then decided to understand what is it that we were doing. We were running different businesses under one roof. Traditional brick and mortar, catering, and I have a photo there that shows you how we had great business sending out trays of food. Delivery, which you know through the partners that are known to everybody. And then we started last year doing prep meal kits, which is, it's not Sunbasket with a raw piece of chicken, and it's not your to-go food that it's ready and maybe soggy when you get it. It's a meal kit that all you have to do with instructions is heat up at home, and you yourself stuff your arepa, or you can use the pulled pork for taco night, and you can use the black beans for your salad, and you can have your our sauce in your refrigerator for everything you want. So that's something that we're just also working on simultaneously under one roof. Next. So then come late February, and we start hearing about COVID, and I start thinking, wow, I think that we're going to face a moment when the restaurant is going to need to be closed. And I started running the numbers, and I said, how long can we be closed? How long can we be closed for, and keep the staff? My biggest worry has always been what happens to the people working at the restaurant if you close the restaurant. If you close for 1 week, well, maybe that's doable. For 2 weeks, that you start getting into trouble, because I know that my staff, they live paycheck to paycheck, and most of them have 2 or 3 jobs. So I started running with my manager a model thinking about our weekly schedule, and as sales would drop, so if sales drop 25%, what would that look like? 50% and then 70%. I told everybody that I would rather spread the work reduction across everybody and keep everybody employed than cut off half of the team and keep half of them fully employed. Because I believe that this is a moment in time, and we're going to be able to come out of this. So very quickly, literally overnight, our sales dropped by 75%. And we only had the partners, Caviar, DoorDash, and Uber Eats, available to us. And I told my team, okay, well, we can work with this. We are going to keep everybody employed 2 days a week on rotation, and this is what we're doing. But I know it's not enough, because that really is just not enough money to live on. So I was really looking for a solution to keep my employees staffed more than 50% of their schedule. So I give my husband all the credit, because he came up with the idea of doing a meal drive where we would raise money to deliver meals to shelters, and that way keep the employees employed. Next slide. So this is what we called Food for Families, Jobs for Hourly Employees. And this is what we did. We figured out what is a meal that is a dignified meal that can really sustain somebody for a good chunk of the day, using our menu that is the least labor intensive for us, and what is the price that covers food cost and payroll. So I'm not looking for anything else. I'm just looking for food cost and payroll costs. And this is what we came up with. You see a picture of that's the meal that we deliver. So next, we seated the drive, and I started cold calling and asking people, do you need meals? This is the program that we have. And people at first said, yes, we need food, but I don't have money to pay for the food. I said, no, I am paying for the food. I'm fundraising for it. I have food ready for you to take, but I'm not in the business of distributing food to people, because I'm used to using Caviar and DoorDash to deliver food to people in their doorstep, or Easy Cater to deliver food to people in their office. So I was looking for the same thing. I know what to do, and I know what we do well. We make food, and we're able to make food in large quantities. We can package them, and we can deliver them, but we cannot distribute them. So I needed a distribution partner or partners that could take this food and distribute it to people that need it. So it started with 25 meals, and then it was 100. And within 10 days, I had all of these organizations that are listed here: Compass Family Services, Hamilton Family Services, Raphael House, Episcopal Community Services, the San Francisco Department of Homelessness. Well, you can read them all. Essentially, I called the rabbi at our temple and I said, I have this program. Who can you put me in touch with? I have a friend who is on the board of Episcopal Community Services. And he said, talk to the director. And she put me in touch with her director and so on and so forth. I called Compass, Connard, and Raphael House. I got a text from somebody sending me the number for the Reverend Brunswick that runs the church. And it was just networking. One day after next, what do you need? How many people do you serve? This is what I offer. These are the windows of delivery that I have. These are the days that I can do it. And so on and so forth. Every other day, I would check in with my amazing store manager and said, hey, it looks like we're going to be needing to deliver 50 meals. Okay. Well, it looks like 100. Okay. It looks like 150. Okay. And I call her, my manager, her name is Lucy. She's amazing. She has a Yes We Can team. We are today delivering over 500 meals every day to all of these organizations. And we are also working we have partnered and we're also delivering meals to hospitals. So I think the first thing I want to point out is you need to have a very yes, we can attitude. And you have to take risks. I didn't know these organizations. These organizations did not know us, but I said, please trust us that we're doing the right thing. And I think you're going to be satisfied with what we're delivering. I knew that I was going to do it well because we have been doing this kind of service with a different source of funding for many years. So next. So this is what I did very quickly. We set up a Venmo and a PayPal account to receive contributions. We seeded the idea with family and friends. Once I knew that we had a little bit of money, I called organizations and created a pipeline. The most important piece, of course, was working with my team to figure out how we were going to do this. We first started with trays because that's what we're used to doing. And that worked in only one location, Raphael House, because they have a kitchen. Their cook had stopped going to work because she had an immune deficiency and she couldn't come in and cook. So they needed the food in trays ready to serve. So that worked, but nobody else can take trays. That has changed. I don't think that anybody else is ever going to be serving caterings out of trays. We have a family pack option. So Compass Family Services houses families. So we have a pack option that serves 4 people. So we figured that out. And that's where we started. We started with a family pack. And then very quickly, when we started with the SROs in the city, it's individual meals. So then we said, wow, this is going to get expensive because of the packaging more than it is about the food. But this is the new world we live in. So with this experience, we are understanding what the new normal is going to be for catering and group orders when that comes back. So you saw a photo on the other one where we just literally took over our dining room and we have it lined up every day where we do our individually packed meals that we send out daily. So once I knew, go back. So once I knew that we could operationally do this, then I was able to commit to more and more meals. And that was really important. Once I knew that we could do this, I started reaching out to our customer base. I was lucky enough to get in touch with somebody at Uber. I'm gonna do a parenthesis here. I have been working with Caviar exclusively for the last 2 years. I was able to cut a very good deal with them if I went exclusive, and I ran my numbers and I did it, and it's been great. But the first thing I did when this happened, and I knew that it was only going to be online ordering, I asked them if they would waive that exclusivity for the time that the shelter-in-place order is in place, so that I could go and work with other people like Uber and Grubhub. And they said yes. So I started working with Uber, and I told them what we were doing with the meal drive, and they actually highlighted us in a nationwide newsletter. So between my family and friends, Pika Pika customers over 13 years, and the Uber newsletter, we started getting donations every day. $8, $16, $24, $50, $1,000, $250. And it's kind of like the Obama campaign effect, right? It's about volume and everybody pitching in. And when I reached out to Compass, I realized that they have a good set of relationships with foundations, and foundations can only give to 501c3s. We are not a 501c3, clearly, but they are. So I worked out with a foundation that supports Hamilton and Compass, and they are donating discrete funds to them that then I invoice that organization, and they quote unquote pay me back for the meals delivered. And then lastly, when I'm done with this webinar, I'm submitting an RFQ, a response to an RFQ that the city sent out, where they are looking for vendors to do exactly what we have been doing, for vendors in restaurants to deliver meals to people in SROs. Because what's going on in San Francisco is that the only way to social distance people that are homeless is to house them. So right now, the city is housing thousands of people in different hotels, like the American Inn, Value Inn, all of these organizations are struggling. And the biggest thing is, the problem is that they need to feed people 3 times a day. It's nutrition. And many of these organizations have funding for maybe 1 meal a day. If they have families, their children usually get their meals at school. Well, right now, these organizations are burdened with the need to feed people 3 times a day. And that's where the opportunity is for restaurants. Is this a long-term solution? I don't think so, but we are living week to week, and this is the solution that we have today. Next. So I mentioned that we partnered with World Central Kitchen, and they're an organization, nationwide organization that has been in place as a disaster relief arm, and they use restaurants as a way to deliver meals for people that are hit. In this case, they're using the health workers are the people that they're helping. So I also jumped on that wagon. And again, I called Lucy and I said, hey, Lucy, we need a different menu. But the good thing about this one is that they can be cold because they warm them up at the hospital whenever they can. So for this one, we're sending an arepa that we are not heating up, and we're sending a soup, a chicken, potato, and corn soup, cold. So I can prep those meals the night before and send them out cold. So this is how, we're able to balance the volume and operationally. Next. I don't know if you want me to stop here, Luis, or just kind of finish with this.
No, go ahead and finish, and then we can take some questions.
Okay. So in terms of what's next, I was telling Luis that what's next is I have funding for the meal drive through May 15th. When I committed to that date, it seemed like it was such a long time, such a long time to get to May 15th. And it looks like we're going to get to May 15th rather quickly, and nothing has changed. So I need to continue to raise funds. So I'll continue to do that using the strategies that I described to you. I'll go back to everybody that I already talked to, and I actually, by the way, send a regular update on what we're doing to anybody that has contributed funds. So it's very important to be transparent with what you're doing with the funds that you get. As I said, diversifying, I'm working with World Central Kitchen, which is great. So they are a good partner to have. I also applied, as I said, to this RFQ. So maybe if I become a contractor for the city, my funding issues are solved. But this poses questions, because if I have to shut down my lunch online ordering, am I losing customers, loyalty? Am I losing revenue that way? So these are the things that I'm applying to the RFQ. And if it gets granted, then we're going to work through the details of delivery windows and when can I actually deliver them and not affect my ongoing business. Because my bread and butter are my customers that are being very loyal right now through Caviar, Uber, and DoorDash. So I'm not going to let them down. You have to be very clear about what's important, because I do want to be in the business of serving my customer base. And as I mentioned before, we're rethinking catering already. We know that group orders are not going to look like they used to. We used to come in with trays and set up a long table and people get in line with a plate and then they're plating food. That's not happening. That's just not going to happen. At least not for the next 6 months. I'm just thinking right now, can I make it to December 2020? And this is how it's going to probably look like. And it's going to look like we're going to have to individually package every meal, and it's going to be more costly. So you're going to have to think about packaging, and you're going to have to rethink your costing. And that's kind of where our head is. We are also signing up for a meal kit delivery platform. So I think people are going to be supporting restaurants. I just don't think that people are going to be walking into restaurants. So this is about behavior. I think people want to support local businesses. I think people want variety of food, because it's been shown that they're not spending less money on food. People are spending a lot of money on food through these delivery platforms. So they want access to variability of food. And maybe people are enjoying cooking at home. So meal kits is probably a good idea, right? So that people are not ordering to go, and it's actually more affordable. So that's something that we're thinking about. And I put the resources here for the things that we're doing. This is called the Daily Kit. They're out of Chicago. And it's great because it's a platform that aggregates restaurants doing meal kits, and they actually figure out the delivery. I just want to repeat what I said earlier. I'm in the business of preparing food and assembling meals. I'm not in the business of distributing. So try to stay really focused and do what you do well, and outsource the things that can become huge problems for you because you're not in the business of distributing, for example. I can stop there and take some questions. And I know, Louise, you may have some questions too.
Sure. We had one question I'll address at the end, but if you guys have questions, go ahead and write them in the Q&A, and I'll make sure that Adriana gets them and can answer them. So in the interim, let me ask you a few questions, Adriana. So for people who maybe hadn't made that leap to delivery, maybe they were doing catering, like you were a little while back, what's the best advice that you can give to them? Because it's, it took you a series of years to sort of get to this point, and then a quick necessity kind of pivot at the end. So if I have a brick and mortar location and I'm a caterer, how do I get to the point where you are, or should I? And how much of that decision is actually based on my menu offerings?
Right. Well, so first and foremost, I think that if you're not doing takeout through these delivery platforms, you have to, because I don't think people are going to be walking through restaurants again in the volumes that we were used to. So I think the first thing you need to do is who services your area. I don't know actually if people on the call are all from the Bay Area or from different places, but San Francisco, of course, has every delivery platform available. Other cities may not have all of them. So who services your city? And then reach out to all of them and start the conversation. Negotiate your fees. Uber, for example, is the most expensive. It's outrageous. It's 30%. And I said, I'm not doing it. So we're doing 25%. I still don't like it. I think it's too expensive. I think, I don't know if you're in San Francisco, it's a good time to get on these because the city put a cap on fees of 15%, which is great. So for example, that's with caviar, we have an exclusive deal and we have a really good percentage. Maybe you want to choose one vendor, negotiate an exclusivity, and have a better deal. In terms of your menu, make sure that that the menu that you have is one that carries out well, right? So your food is going to be prepped and eaten in a period of at least an hour, right? So make sure that you put your best foot forward in terms of what you're offering people on your menu. Then also cost is important. I cannot overstate the impact that packaging and vendor fees have on the profit margins. And I think that if your packaging was budgeted at around 2 or 3%, I'm already adjusting mine to 5 or 6%. We are doubling our packaging cost. And I am not sure if I'm being even conservative with that. So think about that. You can probably increase your pricing on these platforms a little bit, but you cannot increase your menu by 30% to make that Uber fee a pass-through cost. It's just, the numbers don't work. So the way that I came around thinking of that, fee is, well, a portion of it is a marketing fee. You're putting yourself out there, and people, when they're, scrolling through the screen, they see your name and then you're marketing. So you can take some of that and think about it that way. But be careful how much you're paying. And this is a good time to negotiate. When we were platform agnostic, it was crazy. We had like 10 different tablets, and it was just too much. It was just too much for the staff to handle all of the different incoming orders. So, less is more. It really matters, the quality of how you receive the orders, the timely fulfillment, make sure that it's correct, etc. So if you haven't done this yet, start with one and then maybe add another one. Don't add 5 platforms at once, because you're going to get something wrong, and that's going to affect how customers perceive you. There's one software that we use, which is called Chowly, Chowly, which is an integrator into the point of sale system. So instead of actually looking at tablets, the orders come directly into the point of sale system, and they're tagged by the name, caviar 1, 2, 3, 4. And when it comes out in the kitchen like another order, but it's a caviar order. So that took that step of the tablets away. But that's also, it's a software. It needs to be integrated with your point of sale system. It takes time. So start with one and then add so on and so forth. And if you go into different platforms, use the same menu, keep the same pricing, make your life easier, because the accounting on the back end of this is insane. Because one vendor is 18%, the other vendor is 20, the other vendor is 22.5, and you're gonna have to keep tabs on that. So control what you can. You can control your menu, you can control your pricing.
Great.
Was that helpful?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here I'm gonna run through. From Allison, she says, do you have an insight into what you think food packaging will look like in the future and after COVID-19?
I wish I knew. The thing that causes me so much pain about this is that the amount of packaging that we're using is environmentally unfriendly, right? And I think that there is a business opportunity right there to come up with a packaging for the future. I don't know. I just know that people are going to want their meals warm. Even this meal drive, think about this, that people that are in hotels and in SROs mostly, they don't have access to kitchens. So they want and need the food to be warm. So we need to be delivering warm, individually packaged meals, right? So then think about your menu. Right now we're offering a menu that we're very proud of it because it's 24 ounces of food. It's hearty, and it's maybe somebody can use that meal for lunch and for dinner and for lunch the next day. But frankly, it's better for us to maybe just do the arepa if packaging is an issue, because it's one food box instead of what I showed you earlier, which is the box with the compartments, and the beans have the little bucket with the lid. So that starts adding up. But on the other side, what is more labor intensive? For us to make the arepas, cut them, stuff them, and wrap them. So it's a toss-up. And I think you ultimately have to think of your team and what is going to make it easier for your team to deliver the best quality. So you just cannot think of one thing or the other. When you're looking at this, it's your food cost, your labor cost, your packaging cost, and your vendor fee. And then something's got to give, and you just have to pay up where there's less pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And Tim has multiple questions, but I think maybe he just will answer those offline. Maybe he needs a session. I wanted you to address really quickly as well some of the things that you did to ensure a safe workplace for with your staff, and are they all comfortable working right now, and how you sort of manage that whole section of dealing with COVID.
Yeah, I think that that's probably been the hardest thing, right? Because we're all paranoid and we are very scared, and we're asking people to put themselves on the front line. So from the get-go, I told people nobody's obligated to do this. Now, I think that what was very important was talking to all of them very early on and explaining why I am doing this is because I want them fully employed. So I was very clear about the motivation for this. And the motivation is I want everybody on the payroll 100%. So I'm doing it, on their behalf. If they don't want to do it, they're not obligated to do it. So then we very quickly followed all of the protocol. The city of San Francisco has been very forthcoming with their protocol requirements, and they've been great. So we have done things such as when an employee comes, they have to take off their jacket and cap and put it in a bag, and we put it in the hallway. Our bathrooms are only for employees. We have set a barrier between the front of the house and the kitchen so that nobody can come 6 feet to it. Then, of course, we've done markings where people have to wait 6 feet apart to pick up the food. We have masks and we have gloves. It's very hard to come through the masks. I had a friend that just delivered cloth masks that are washable. And I am just constantly asking for masks. We order them, but of course they're back ordered. But I found 10,000 masks, and I bought 10,000 masks because I do think that we're going to need those masks for a long time. We are desperately looking for a contactless thermometer. It's back order. So we can get all of the equipment that we really need as if we were health workers in this. But when we get the food done, we are very conscious of putting it in single-use cardboard boxes that we put in front. So then we come in front of the restaurant, then the driver comes and picks it up and takes it. We try to really minimize the number of people coming into the restaurant and the number of people that we come in contact with.
Great. There's a question here, anonymous, small town pizza place, locality, 10 to 15 miles. We just closed last week. We don't have Uber, etc. Who do we contact first? The fundraising is for the food only, and the sales profit goes to salaries. Also, can we now pivot from large food distributor to food from local vendors?
What was that last question? Can we?
Also, can we now pivot from large food distributor to food from local vendors?
Just to address that last one, it's been interesting. I continue to purchase from our local vendor in the Mission for produce, but sometimes he can't get the items that I need. So I'm forced to go out and look for these items with a bigger food distributor. But before doing that, you also have to be flexible. We usually use black beans, and he didn't have black beans, he had pinto beans. So I said, then we serve pinto beans, right? So, you know, there's a point of flexibility that you have to have in order to stay logical. So if you're a pizza place, which means that you probably have really good name recognition in your town. People know who you are. People probably want to support you. I think it's finding out, is there a problem in your town that needs to be serviced through food? Are people having a hard time getting access to food? So I frame the problem. In San Francisco, the homelessness problem, has been well documented and it's huge. So that was easy. What is the problem in your town, and how can you help solve it or support it for the short term with your food? And then once you have that well articulated, I think it's really a lot easier to go for funding, to say to your town folk and say, hey, this is the problem and we need X amount of money, and with this money I can employ 5 of the 8 people that I usually had on payroll. I hope that helps.
Great, thank you. I have a question I don't really understand. Miko, maybe you could rewrite.
Can I verbalize it? There's a couple questions about packaging. This is Monty. Whether or not you use a third party to purchase your packaging, if you're using biomaterials, what you're currently using, what you think the best options are, what might be coming down the road, making changes in that area, just kind of that whole area. You know.
Yes, so we have always, since we opened in 2008, used biodegradable packaging, and we continue to do that. We buy it at Restaurant Depot and at Cash and Carry, because it's literally around the corner from our store, so it's very convenient. So again, I think you have to stay true to certain things that are important to you as a value. Biodegradable packaging is really important to me. It's always been, and it will continue to be. The trash issue drives me insane. I really hope we can come up with some packaging options, but I don't use, but maybe I will need to start using companies like APP and these bigger paper supply companies. I have never been one to invest on individualized logo printing on the packaging and whatnot, because again, it's just more costly. And I think that those are very nice to have luxuries, but maybe I'm going to need to, because it's all going to be packaging from now on. And that's how you're going to place your brand. You know, that would be the corner. People are not coming to the store, but they're taking your food in, and that's how you're branding yourself. So you have to think about those.
One other question from Allison. She said, do you anticipate these delivery arms taking a smaller percentage in the future due to the increased competition at all?
I think that's a great question, and I've been wondering about the impact that the cap that the city put on them of 15% will be, because it is quite onerous to ask for a 25-30% fee, and quite frankly, once this shelter in place comes down and things stabilize a little bit, I am personally going to have one-on-one conversations with everybody and say, you know, we need to work together, or I'm going to go back to my exclusivity with one vendor. I have to tell you, I have been really impressed with the leadership that DoorDash has had and Caviar. They cut vendor fees by half as of last week. They very aggressively started marketing 0 delivery fees. They immediately reached out with options. They have been really amazing towards the small business owners. And, you know, they still have, remember, they employ gig workers. So you also want to support them, because it's a cycle, right? Like they're supporting a big number of people. So they can go down to 0, but I think they can come down from 30%. I really do.
Right. And just, we've got a couple of minutes left. When you were, you know, kind of pivoting to do this, did you have in the back of your mind also, because I know you're very passionate about your employees, but did you also consider the positive effect you would be having on the food supply chain, which seems to be in question right now. I watched on 60 Minutes how a lot of farmers were used to delivering to restaurants. The restaurants are all closed now, so they're just throwing out their whole, you know, all of their vegetables for the season, and how that could potentially affect us down the road. And you know, what do you think about that? What do you have to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the photos of massive amounts of food being just thrown away, and it breaks my heart, because what I'm telling you, I hope I articulated it, that the problem around nutrition is really acute. And I think that there is an opportunity for the cities, you know, this is a local effort, that they can really get on the bandwagon and help food not be lost. I think, you know, I think I'm doing my part.
We love you, Adriana. We really do.
Yes. Thank you.
We know,
Thank
we
you
know
so
you
much.
take it to heart. We really do. We really appreciate you. And this great presentation today. I just think it's amazing. Every time I speak to you, my mind goes, you know, and when I see the work that you're doing and everything that you're trying to do. And so we'll support you in absolutely any way that we can.
Thank you.
Is there a site that we can put up, or a link if anybody wants to donate, that's on the
Oh,
call?
yes. So
That
it's
around?
Venmo. Venmo is at Pika Pika Kitchen, and that's really the best. And in my presentation, where I put what's next, I put the links. I think you should reach out to World Central Kitchen. I think that's a really good way to understand how you can use your restaurant. Think about, there's a nutritional crisis. It's going to continue. You have a kitchen. It's permitted. You have the know-how how to make food. There are people that know how to distribute the food, and there's money sitting out there to support this. So identify the problem and who can you help, and really start small. What I was saying earlier to you today, Louise, is if you're used to making a batch of 20 pounds of beef, do not go and make 200 pounds of beef the next day and pretend that it's going to be okay. All right. So start small. So see if you can actually ramp up slowly and deliver it with quality and with honoring your menu, right? Like make sure that you're staying true to what is driving you. Now, if for you, the only solution to keep your employees employed is to go from serving a high-end kind of pastry to servicing food banks or schools with sandwiches and fruit, and that's going to keep you open and your employees employed for the next 2 months, go ahead and do it. Like, I think this is the opportunity to just say, what is motivating me? What motivated me was keeping my employees employed. The rest just kind of started falling into place. I am lucky that I've used all of the experience that I mentioned earlier that makes my menu be very flexible to service this way of being. And the last thing that I think we were going to talk about, Louise, in terms of the future, what I think we all need to be thinking about as restaurateurs is people like food. People will continue to need food and they will want to pay for it. How they access it is not up to us anymore. They want to access it differently, whether it is through caviar, whether it is through a meal kit, whether it is through grocery, whether it is through brick and mortar or group orders. You just don't know. So start thinking more flexibly about how can you be ready to give people the food whichever way they want to access it. I hope that helps.
That's great. Diversifying as much as possible. I think that's definitely the key. Okay, well, I think we've run out of time here. Yes, Tim, we will send you a copy of the slides, and please reach out to me and we will try to get you some one-on-one. And if there are no other questions, I just want to take an opportunity again to thank you, Adriana. You're always so inspiring. And thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck, and info@pikapika.com, and I can answer some questions.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank you for
everyone.
the invitation.
You're welcome.